second graders. It is Miss Schulz. I'm going to read to you today The Boy Who Cried Wolf. I'm reading this to you because we are looking at fables and folktales and learning about the central message, the moral, but also really looking at the elements of story. So we have the characters and the setting and the events and the problem and how people feel. So there's a lot when we are retelling a story to remember. So we also call retelling a story as recounting a story. Once upon a time, a boy named Joseph lived with his family in a small village. There were high hills all around the village, and away in the distance there was a dark forest. Joseph was learning to be a shepherd boy. On his first morning, he had to take the sheep up to a high mountain all by himself. As Joseph sat and watched the sheep, he looked across at the dark forest. His father had said to him, "If you see a wolf coming out of the forest, you must call me. I will bring the men from the village to help you chase it away." The day went by very slowly, and Joseph grew bored and lonely. He grew tired of looking at the sheep and watching out for the wolves. At long last, the sun went down and he could walk home with the sheep. Early the next morning, Joseph had to take the sheep up to the meadow again. The day went by even more slowly. Then, as he sat watching the sheep, an idea came to him. "If I pretend that a wolf is coming out of the forest, someone will come running up here to see me," he said to himself. So Joseph shouted down to his father, "Help me! Help me! A wolf is coming to get the sheep! Wolf! Wolf!" Joseph's father quickly called the village men together. They gathered up heavy sticks and rushed up the hill to help Joseph. But when they got to the meadow, there was no wolf to be seen. Joseph said, "The wolf went away when it heard you coming." The men were glad that the wolf had disappeared. They stayed and talked to Joseph for a while, and then they all went back to work. But the next day, Joseph played the same trick again. "Come and help me," he called. "I can see a wolf! Wolf! Wolf!" Again, the men ran up the hillside to the meadow. "Where is the wolf?" they asked. "We cannot see any wolves." And with that, they all went back down to the village. The following day, Joseph cried wolf again. But this time, when the men came and found no wolf, they were angry with Joseph. "You have called us 3 times now," they said, "and we have never seen a wolf. We don't believe you anymore, and we are not going to come if you call wolf again." So the next morning, when Joseph walked up to the meadow with the sheep, he knew that he had a long, lonely day ahead of him. Then, as he looked over at the forest, he saw a dark shadow moving out of the trees. It was a wolf, and more dark shadows were following it. Joseph was very frightened. He shouted down to the village, "Wolf! Wolf! I can see a wolf!" But the people just went on with their work. "We are not going to be tricked again," they said to each other. Joseph was terrified. He ran down the hillside shouting, "Help me! Help me! The wolves are coming out of the forest! They'll get the sheep!" But no one paid any attention to Joseph. He had tricked them too many times. Joseph's father said, "Come with me, Joseph. I will take you back up the hillside. You must look after the sheep." But when Joseph and his father reached the meadow, they saw a terrible sight. The wolves had killed most of the sheep. "No one came to help me," cried Joseph. "No one listened to me." His father turned to him and said, "You cried wolf too many times when there was no wolf. So when the wolves really came, no one believed you." Joseph felt very sad and very, very sorry about what he had done. And from that moment on, Joseph knew he must always tell the truth so that people could believe him and trust him. would love for you, second grader, to go to a family member and retell or recount this classic folk tale. I'm certain that you are familiar with it, and your parents are probably very familiar with it. What is it that you would include in your retell? So you're going to include the characters, you're going to include the setting, you're going to include the events. And as you go through telling the events, you want to remember the characters' feelings. And we do know that he was really bored. He was lonely. The character Joseph was young, and he wasn't used to being on his own. So that was what motivated him to tell this big lie. So in your retell, practice. You can even practice with a stuffed animal. You can practice just talking to yourself, and then remember to include what is it that is the moral or the lesson. What does the author want us to learn? Talk to you later, second graders.